Welcome to Itasca Waters Practical Water Wisdom Series. I'm John Downing, your host today. We have a great session for you today. How the state determines its fish management strategies, including the stocking of lakes. We are honored to have Don Schreiner with us today. He is a fisheries biologist with approximately 35 years of experience managing fisheries with the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources.
Well, thanks, John, for the introduction, and thank all of you for tuning in this afternoon over your lunch hour to listen to the presentation here on how Minnesota lakes are managed for fisheries. So with that, when I talk about fisheries management in lakes, I talk about it in the form of a toolbox. Inland lake management in Minnesota is really important and it's big business. On the left-hand side, you can see that Minnesota every year sells over 1.5 million licenses. I want to talk about the lake surveys to begin with, the type of gear we use, and some of the information we collect, because that's the data that is used to justify how lakes are managed. So I just talked about the gill nets, and in Minnesota lake survey programs, the gill net is probably one of the most important gears that we use. The catch per effort is the number of fish per gill net set per night. If we look at the trap nets, this is the other major gear used in lake surveys. They are set in shallow water. You can see in the central photograph here, you can see the lead where it's staked to shore, leads into the box, and then a series of funnels. Another piece of gear that adds to the overall picture of what's going on in a lake is an electrofishing. Quickly going through some of the reasons for stocking, there's 4 major reasons that I come up with. And the first is reintroduction or rehabilitation, and that's where you have intact habitat or you've improved habitat. Some examples of those are lake trout in the Great Lakes. So a hatchery, if they were clumped together, they wouldn't survive at all. So the mucking of the eggs takes care of that adhesive coating on the egg. So in summary, again, back to our 4 drawers in the toolbox, the assessment and communication. I think there's been huge improvements in that with technology. DNR is much more open to public comment.
Well, hi, welcome to Itasca Waters Practical Water Wisdom Series. I'm Brian Whittemore, your host for today. Today's program is called Monomen, the food that grows on water. We have 2 experts with us today to talk about an absolutely fascinating subject, monomen, the Anishinaabe word for wild rice.
Thank you, Brian. That was a great intro. I appreciate it. Monomen is the significance of monomen is embedded within the Anishinaabe people. Anishinaabe is used both with Ojibwe as well as Chippewa. And an example of that is from their migration story. More regarding the significance of monomen. Next slide, please. There are many impacts to the subsistence-based lifestyle of the Anishinaabe people. Involves in many ceremonies. Next slide, please. And we'll finish up today talking a little bit about the protection of monomen as it protects us and that reciprocity. Now I'll hand it over to Darren Miigwech.
Thank you, Marnie. So again, I'm Darren Boat. I'm the Resource Management Division Director here at 1854 Treaty Authority. So as Marnie explained, bands retain those treaty rights in different ceded territories, and we're also interested in the health of the resources themselves. And so I head up our biology wing here essentially, and we're interested in fisheries work, wildlife, environmental issues, climate change, invasive species, and of course, monomen is an important issue. So that's one thing we really spend a lot of time on, is making sure monomen is protected and enhanced for present and future generations. So a little bit about wild rice. So it's an annual plant. grows in real shallow lakes and rivers. So when you think about wild rice habitat, you're thinking of shallow water. 1 to 3 feet is kind of the prime window for water levels, but it can grow deeper as well. Just some pictures of how rice looks through the year. End of May in the top left, a lake can look like an open water. And then you progress to the right is that floating leaf stage. Kind of hard to see with the cloudy picture there, but you can see the rice floating on surface. That's kind of what we're approaching now. Bottom left is July when the rice is standing, and then finally in August when the rice is ripening and either it's harvest time or the seeds fall back in. So when we started our program here, some of this talk's going to focus on the 1854 ceded territory here, but we really were interested on where is wild rice found in that ceded territory. So we had a grad student do some work on, combed all kinds of different records. We've looked at different reports from the Forest Service and DNR, our own field observations. So this is a work in progress. Occasionally we will find another area that has wild rice, but our current list has 527 wild rice waters in the ceded territory. And so currently through some of those efforts, we're looking at, 2,300 to 2,400 wild rice waters in the state. You can see Itasca County there in particular, as part of that kind of, I would say, north central Minnesota is the real kind of central spot to where monomen is found, north central Minnesota, and then into northeastern Minnesota. So yeah, about 2,300 waters we think have or had wild rice in the state.
Program. You will also be getting an email evaluation form so you can choose how you'd like to respond. I'm Brian Whittemore for Itasca Waters, and thanks again for being with us today.
Welcome to Itasca Waters Practical Water Wisdom Series. I'm John Downing, your host for today. Today's program is called Success Stories on Preventing and Remediating the Spread of Aquatic Invasive Species in Minnesota Lakes.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that introduction. Awesome. You guys, thank you so much. Thank you so much for inviting me to present today. Again, I am Maddie Hayden. I'm with Mazer. I kind of had this really There we go. Second that they didn't advance. All right. First, I wanted to start off by thinking about success. How do you view success? And so if we're undergoing kind of this mindset change when it comes to success in our lives, success with our families, we also need to rethink about other aspects. So really quickly, we're talking about invasive species. What are they? In the simplest terms, they are a non-native organism that spreads rapidly to a new environment. Kind of this last introduction side is just talking about, so as I go through and talk about, so same brackets, prevention, we have that blue area all the way down to that red high cost associated with the management. I really just touched on a watercraft inspector in that last one, right? But I kind of want to cover their impact a little bit more if we didn't have watercraft inspectors at our lake. But I think it's safe to say that in all actuality, they have presented numerous amounts of infestation. So moving to a little bit dicier of an area, control and management after a species has become established. So we're getting into this red area. The second example here is Lake Independence.
I'm John Downing for Itasca.
Well, hi there. Welcome to Itasca Waters Practical Water Wisdom Series. I'm Brian Whittemore, your host for today. Today's program is called PFAS, commonly called forever chemicals, in water. How did they get there and why are they so challenging to address? Now on to today's program. Dr. Bridget Ulrich grew up on the Iron Range in Virginia, Minnesota. Bridget, it's all yours.
Thank you, Brian, and thank you everybody who has been able to join us for today. I'm really excited to connect with this community and talk about a topic that I really care about, which is PFAS in water. So from this webinar today, I'm hoping that you can take away a better understanding of what PFAS are, why they've caused so much recent concern, how they've become so widespread in the environment, and what is being done, and if there's anything else that we can do. Technically, according to the EPA, PFAS are chemicals that have at least two adjacent carbon atoms, that one being a fully fluorinated carbon atom, more harmful in terms of making you more likely to be exposed to them, including being ubiquitous or present everywhere, as well as mobile, so their ability to spread throughout the environment once released. And then one other source that I want to highlight today are aqueous film forming foams. And lastly, to end with what can we as normal people do? So one thing is to understand why PFAS have become such an urgent concern, and I hope that
those out. Well, thank you so much. I will pass things back over to Brian.
All right, guys. Thank you. Thanks, Hillary, and especially Dr. Bridget Ulrich. Thank you for your work. Make sure this program again or recommend it to your family, friends, or neighbors. A recording of today's talk will soon be on our website at itascawaters.org, along with all of our previous programs. I'm Brian Whittemore for Itasca Waters. Thanks very much for being with us today. Welcome to Itasca Waters Practical Water Wisdom Series. I'm Brian Whittemore. I'll be your host for today. Today's program is called Low Salt and No Salt Water Softening and Conditioning. Now, today's program, Dr. Alicia Overbo received her PhD in Water Resources Science from the University of Minnesota.
Well, thank you for having me. My name is Alicia Overbo, and today I'll be talking about low and no salt water softening and conditioning. So we do know, based on extensive research, that elevated levels of chloride in our surface waters, like our rivers, lakes, and streams, can be really damaging to ecosystems because of the impacts they have on vegetation and to aquatic life. So in Minnesota, as we've been sampling more of our surface waters for chloride, and as we've been using more salt for a number of different applications, we have been seeing an increasing trend in our chloride impairments over time. So this was the focus also of that LCCMR project that I mentioned and of our previous research, and also may require treatment to prevent the membrane from getting clogged, particularly for something like iron or manganese. And another thing that we're thinking about is the reverse osmosis. The point of entry, treating that whole house, is going to be substantially more expensive than a point of use kitchen treatment type. So in summary, some of our good starting points are determining if you need to soften.
But thank you, Dr. Overbo, both for your time and your expertise today. I'm Brian Whittemore for Itasca Waters. Thank you for being with us today. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Season 4 of Itasca Waters Practical Water Wisdom Series. As we mentioned, the subject for today is freshwater jellyfish, and our expert presenter is Dr. Beatrix Beisner. Dr. Beatrix Beisner is a professor in the Department of Biological Sciences at the University of Quebec, Montreal. And now, here's Dr. Beatrix Beisner.
Great. Thank you for the introduction, Brian, and glad to see everybody online. So once again, thank you for the invitation, and it's wonderful to be here. So I'm going to talk to you about freshwater jellyfish today. The Latin name is Craspeticustus sauerbi, which is the name that you see on the screen. And ideally, I'm going to be talking about why we're hearing more about them. So why do they seem to be increasing so quickly, and what do they do in lakes? So you can move down. This is a video of little jellyfish swimming around. So this video shows, you can see little sort of almost transparent, well, quite transparent circles lying on the bottom of this little jar and one at the top. So those are little tiny jellyfish. And the picture on the left-hand side shows you for scale what about the size that they would be. Now that's a relatively small one. They can get up to about the size of a quarter. But that just gives you an idea. And another idea for scale is this jar that you're looking at with the jellyfish in it is actually one of those urine sample jars that you get at the doctor's that you need to fill. Well, we didn't take one from the doctor. We bought our own directly from the company. So they were never used for urine, but we do use them for collecting zooplankton and other plankton samples because they're a really efficient way of doing so. So my students came back with this video and with this jar full of little tiny jellyfish. And we were all super excited. And I have to admit, that was the first time I realized that there were freshwater jellyfish. So they mostly live in pond and lake habitats, and I'll show a bit later some numbers around that. They're native to China from the Yangtze River Basin. They use, just like other jellyfish, they use stinging cells, which we call nematocysts, to catch plankton prey. So that's their main prey. So where do they fit in the whole food web of lakes? Well, they feed mainly on zooplankton. Okay, so now I want to move on to why are we hearing so much about them now? And I believe there are three main reasons, and I want to go through them all in my presentation. So how do they affect freshwater ecosystems? Well, I'll just preface all this with saying we have a lot to learn about them still.
Thanks, Bill. Great job. And thank you, Dr. Beisner. This program will be available soon on our website at itascawaters.org. I'm Brian Whittemore, and thank you for watching today. Well, good afternoon, and welcome to Season 4 of Itasca Waters' Practical Water Wisdom series, which focuses on issues related to water and ways to resolve those issues. I'm your host, Brian Whittemore. Today's episode is called Lakeshore Development and Natural Shoreline Protection to Preserve Biotic Health. As we mentioned, the subject for today is lakeshore development, natural shoreline assessment, monitoring, and outreach. So let's get to it. Here are Tom and Mike. Guys, take it away.
Great. Thank you so much, Brian. Mike Eisensee here, and I'm going to kick us off. Okay, so I just wanted to give a little bit of context of where we're at. Tom and I are the two full-time permanent staff, and we have 7 board managers on our district. Further, as we were developing the plan, we were taking a look at a lot of our lakes, and really what we were seeing is that, you know, it seems like most people living on lakes understood that what we really need for a healthy lake system are lots that look like this, but the majority of the lots that we were seeing had been heavily altered, and we're lacking native vegetation, and we're looking more like this. So
I won't spend a lot of time on this, but I've thoroughly gone through the literature, and it's amazing the vast amount of literature that does exist on what supports a healthy fishery or a natural ecosystem beyond fish.
Okay, thank you, Hillary, and thank you, Mike Sensei and Tom Langer. This program, as Hillary said, will be available soon on our website, itascawaters.org. I'm Brian Whittemore. Thanks for watching today.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Season 4 of Itasca Waters' Practical Water Wisdom series, which focuses on issues related to water and ways to resolve those issues. My name is Hillary Sorensen. I'm the Water Resources Extension Educator with Minnesota Sea Grant, and I'm filling in today as your host for Brian Whittemore. Today's episode is called Minnesota Ice Out Forecast for 2025. As we mentioned, for the subject today is Minnesota's Ice Out Forecast for 2025.
And thanks everybody for coming today. This is something that I really love to do. something that we started some years ago. I put this slide up again with a picture of my little dog's feet. Now, why do I care about this, or why should you care about this? When I was a kid growing up in Minnesota, ice out seemed to me to be pretty narrowly focused, that you pretty much knew when the ice was going to go off of the lake. Incredibly, it really seems to have increased in variation. And this is really important because it's the dividing line between water sports in Minnesota and the winter lake sports like ice fishing, skating, snowmobiling, skiing, and that is divided from the summer lake sports like boating, kayaking, canoeing, fishing, water skiing, swimming, diving, you name it, by the departure of the ice in the springtime to the tourism industry. And this is another reason it's important, not just because we want to know when the boat goes in. So what you're seeing here is kind of winter, and down at the bottom is the date. This was March, a little bit later than now in 2021. You're seeing the weather varying. You're beginning to see a shore lead. That's water around the edge. And that water around the edge indicates that water is either flowing in or you're getting melt of the ice near the edge of the lake because it's thinner near the edge of the lake. Now, here we've got some flows, a big shore lead. Those flows begin to rattle back and forth as they get pushed by the wind. And when they really get dynamic, they'll start to smash into each other, break each other up. And then once ice out starts, it just goes like crazy. Oops, let me pass by that one if I can. Okay, now lots of things cause lake ice to melt faster or slower. Long, intense, warm periods, of course, which I call.
So I'm Hillary Sorensen again. Thank you so much for watching today and hope to see you next time.
Well, good afternoon. Welcome to Season 4 of Itasca Waters' Practical Water Wisdom Series, which focuses on issues related to water and ways to resolve those issues. I'm your host, Brian Whittemore. Today's episode is called Beaver Dams, Ponds, and Effects. As we mentioned, the subject for today is beaver dams, ponds, and effects, and our expert presenter is Dr. Emily Fairfax.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that introduction. So I'm very excited to be here today talking to you all about beaver dams, ponds, and their effects. Now, most of us know beavers as nature's engineers. And what I'm showing you now is a classic beaver dam landscape here in Minnesota. So on the left here, we have the Beaver's Dam. This is, again, made of sticks and stones and mud. Its only purpose is to hold back water and to slow down water, a pond. I'm showing you now a drone video from one of my field sites up in northern Minnesota, just near Duluth. And that's the Beaver's Lodge that I have two of my field assistants walking on, just for some scale perspective. Now, as the drone lifts up and we go higher and higher in altitude, we've just now started to see the first beaver dam cutting across that image from top to bottom. And now the second one just came into view. All across this image, you'll see those beaver canals radiate outwards, snaking across the landscape, connecting the lowlands to the uplands, connecting upstream to downstream to upstream to downstream and back again. And we're seeing two beaver dams. Currently one, the second one's just about to come on screen on the right. And we have come up with ways to sort of out-engineer beavers. And we're not the only ones thinking about changing our beaver management methods. Right next door in Wisconsin, over the last year, there has been a huge step forward in exploring what's called non-lethal management or coexistence with beavers. And when I think why bother, it's because beaver dams and their canals and the wetlands they make are uniquely resistant and resilient to climate change. We need wetlands for many reasons, and those wetlands can be beaver created or otherwise. Not much happening there. Compare it to the place where we have the beavers building their dams, digging their canals. There's a lot more ways for the water to move around. Instead of seeing this large-scale erosion and soil loss and scouring, what we see instead when there's beavers is water being spread out, slowed down, and stored.
Dr. Fairfax, thank you. And thank you to everyone at all these questions. We have a phenomenal amount of people here today. Thank you, everyone. So, Brian, I'm turning it back over to you.
All right, I'll say thank you to Bill too, and thank you, Dr. Fairfax. I'm Brian Whittemore. Thanks for watching today. Good afternoon, and welcome to Season 4 of Itasca Waters' Practical Water Wisdom series, which focuses on issues related to water and ways to resolve those issues. I'm your host, Brian Whittemore. Today's episode is called Climate Change Effects on Fisheries. As we mentioned, the subject for today is climate change effects on our fisheries. And our expert presenter is Dr. Hadley Bohm.
Thank you, Brian. All right. Well, thank you for the opportunity to speak about this subject. Previous century, we're losing snowpack in the winter. And while, again, that overall amount of precipitation is important for fish, timing and intensity matters a lot. So think of things like the relationship between look at. So you can see that this is a really large, useful data set that we can use to look at trends and examine species patterns over time. So as I mentioned, we already talked about these standard gill nets that are occurring in standard surveys to learn more. So ice out. Walleye are a species that are strongly affected by ice out date. They spawn as soon as the ice goes out, usually when the water temperature is around 40 to 50 degrees or so. They come into the shallows, they find rocky shorelines. Once the eggs are fertilized, they get sticky and adhere to the rocks. And it can take anywhere from 1 to 3 weeks for these eggs to mature. And the time it takes depends on water temperature. Now I'll switch back to Cisco or Tullaby again. Again, they're the most abundant cold water species that we have in Minnesota. They're found in, a lot of, about 650 lakes in the northern half of the state. So in summary, we're gonna see some changes in the fish community. All signs point to the climate, precipitation, and temperature trends we've been observing continuing. So it's not unreasonable to expect that fish communities are going to change in the coming decades.
Thank you, Hillary, and thank you very much, Hadley. A recording of this program will be available soon on our website, itascawaters.org. I'm Brian Whittemore. Thanks again for watching today. Well, good afternoon, and welcome to Itasca Waters' Practical Water Wisdom series, which focuses on issues related to water and ways to resolve those issues. I'm your host, Brian Whittemore. Today's episode is called Septic System Health Check, a deep dive into inspections and maintenance. In this special video presentation, Northwoods will be conducting an inspection of a homeowner's septic system in Itasca County.
And I'm Rebecca Olson with Northwoods Excavating, a small family excavating business that's in Balsa, Minnesota.
And Rebecca, thanks so much for being with us today. This is really exciting to be able to look over a wonderful septic system. Thanks.
Thank you for having me. The new installs, we're going to talk about, I guess, gravity systems. So that's if you have the golden ticket of the year. I always say we do very few, actually, gravity systems anymore. Just because we're looking for redoxamorphic features in the soils, we're staying above that seasonal high water table. Another option that we do more often in good soil is a pressure bed. So we still intact a pump and we pump it up to a suitable elevation in the soil.
Okay, and so the mound system has, you see a big hill of like sand or something, and then you're pumping the effluent up into that so it can percolate downward.
Sewage.
Okay.
So in the cases that we have tighter soil on the surface, we want to go 3 feet above that. So that's why you bring in that clean sand, that wash sand, and we're distributing over that clean soil.
Okay.
So that's what's treating the bugs, actually. I also like to dose the system, like with the float. I'll manually pump the pump tank down into the system so I can see, is there a weep hole? Is it flowing, a lot of water flowing back, recycling back into the tank?
Okay.
Does your alarm float work? And so I like to do all that stuff when the tank is full. We look at it empty to see the sides of the tank, basically.
Okay, great.
Thank you, Rebecca Olson of Northwoods Excavating. Super job. And John, you too. Nice work. The program will be available soon on our website at itascawaters.org. I'm Brian Whittemore, and thank you for watching today.